of the things Cat Williams talked about was Diddy.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we went into 2024 with Diddy already facing charges, but Diddy hadn't been arrested yet. He hadn't been charged yet. He wasn't in prison yet. I don't think anybody could have anticipated how. I mean, Diddy became a punchline in 2024. In addition to becoming incarcerated, in addition to facing a ton of charges, I mean, people are literally running around the country saying no Diddy. People are literally making baby oil references. People are, I mean, there are so many levels and layers of it. And it's all troublesome and problematic for lots of reasons. But Diddy had a really, I mean, I can't express how bad a year Diddy had.
Yeah. Well, I mean, perhaps not as bad as many of those before with allegations against him, right. And the fact that what's been alleged, seriously alleged, and even things that have been confirmed, if we're thinking about Cassie Ventura and the video that we saw of a very vicious assault that she endured, that it is, like you said, a punchline. It is a joke. And I know we had a discussion months ago on here when we were talking about our response to this and our reactions to this and the kind of gravity of the situation and the amount of kind of laughter that happened to it, right? It's the baby oil jokes. It's the no Diddy, which just suddenly replaces no homo and still traffics in a kind of benign homophobia that we've gotten so accustomed to. Pause. When you're talking about this, like and there's so many ways that we're not still talking about it in terms of abuse, and we want to make him singular as a figure. And it became, well, who's next? Who's the next predator that we're going to find out? Like, let's get them. Let's get these big dogs out of here. And then somehow we'll be rid of predatory violence and somehow rid of abuse, not even looking at the ecosystem by which this is able to even occur. That we get predatory behavior, that we actually have to hold ourselves accountable for the ways we condone, are complicit in, or are ourselves engaged in predatory behavior or things doing that. And so, you know, making him a singular monster doesn't actually call out the monstrosity of predatory behavior that exists in this world, right? A court upheld today the civil case in which Trump, right, was found liable for defamation and for sexual assault. And so the person who's about to become president again of the United States is someone who was found civilly liable for predatory behavior and defamation. So when we talk about the needle moving, exposure is one thing of what's happened, but actually having a real discussion about violence, the Me Too movement, coming into this industry, and specifically here thinking about hip hop industry, thinking about kind of popular Black culture en masse, I don't think we're somewhere better, to be perfectly honest. In fact, I'm fear that we might be worse off because there's a singular to it. It's not this kind of scaffolding that we're questioning as much as I think we should.
Jameer, do you feel the same way, or are you saying something different in any way?
No, I would agree. I think it is very singular because you also see these people who, like, you see Diddy, and later on in the year, Jay-Z would have allegations towards him. This burning of the old regime. People now want to, you know, I saw people even before Jay-Z was like alleged. Like people was like, you know, we waiting for Jay-Z too. It's like we want to tear down this idea of what celebrity was because of what it like looks like now. You know, like it has a lot of holes in it, a lot of murky areas, a lot of predatory behavior, and you start seeing things up close from a timeline of like 20 years. You're like, hey, wait a minute, this is some really sketchy stuff. And not only that, like these people are accused of heinous things. Like I learned so much more about Diddy this year. So much stuff I didn't even want to know but like you
and you knew Diddy like pretty well from the outside. I mean, like you're a music head, you're a cultural critic, you knew, and you grew up in New York, so you've heard the stories. You've even spent time with Diddy.
So to preface, I interviewed Diddy. You don't have to,
That's what I meant.
No, you could have said interviewed. I mean,
because you told me a very particular story that I find that
yes, I did. For the Met Gala, working with Vogue, I was directing Diddy, and when you think, I met him, I had heard these things, not these things. I just heard, that he was kind of, loud and very dominant, centered, and aggressive, and all these things. I had never met him before, but when I did the interview with him, it was like I didn't know who he was, but it was like a totally different person. I was like, oh, he's not like this at all. And then you start hearing all these allegations, and you're like, well, how do you really know a person? I met him one time, and I had these hopes in my head from like childhood. He's a creative hero, a musical hero for me, growing up.
But moisturized.
If we talk about the era, like he was very
moisturized
before. There we.
I mean, Jameer, to your point, I think, and even if you did know him, right? Mm-hmm. Like, let's say you did. Let's say all knew him well, right? Mm-hmm. I know folks didn't see this behavior either. I think this is the other thing we have to dispel, right? Because there's the ecosystem and people on here, I saw some comments like, we got to get their entourages and this and their people. Mm-hmm. And absolutely, there are people around them enabling. You can be friends with, you can be in relationship with, you can be in family with people who do horrible things to other people who never do anything horrible to you.
That's a fact.
And so I think in trying to actually get at the root of what has happened, what continues to happen, the various sexual assaults and things that have happened since we found out about the allegations against Diddy, against all kinds of other people, is that thing that I want us to get at more so than I just want to like take down Diddy. Like Diddy is incarcerated. He is, so much has come out, so much to wade through in terms of what the accusations are, and so many things that aren't just about sexual violence and predation and child sex abuse. It's attractive relationships with artists, how he treated people. Like there's all kinds of things around that. And so he may be singularly terrible. He may be. And I do think that it's important to say, like, even those who were in proximity to him, even folks who may have been in relationship with him, may not have known the extent to which he was violent. They might have been like, he's an asshole sometimes, but he don't engage that like that with me. He knows what boundaries not to cross with me. And so
that's what I hear from people. That's exactly what I hear from a lot of people in business.
You know what I mean? I'm like, there are definitely people who've been accused of things in my life where I would be like, oh my gosh, I've never encountered them like that. And there's a way not to discount the other people's experiences with them, with also acknowledging that that was not your experience with him.
Yeah, for sure.
So I feel like there's this thing now of like, who was near Diddy? Who was at these parties? Who was doing this? To try and put this kind of cloud of predatory behavior around everyone who was ever in contact with one of the most powerful figures, popular media for the last 30 years. And that's unfair. And it doesn't do anything for his victims for us to do that.
No.
It does nothing for his victims. It does nothing for people coming forward with their stories to have this cloud of them, because you then aren't, again, getting at the actual violence that's happened, the harm that's happened. And there's nothing reparative about just exposing. There's nothing reparative about that.
That's a powerful sentence right there. There's nothing, restorative about just exposing, right? There has to be a healing. There has to be a justice. There has to be accountability. And these are all things that we don't see.